Hey, what's going on everybody? Alex here with Freedom Mowers. I hope you all are doing well. Today we are going to be on part 5 of our free mower to $2,000 challenge, where we took a free push mower, fixed it, flipped it several times now. We have gone through 4 machines and we are on to number 5. I had $1,250 in my pocket after we sold the last one, and I bought a really nice zero turn from what I can tell for 200 bucks. So let's jump right to it, check it out, and see if we can get this thing fixed.
Alright, and this is what we got. I believe this to be around a 2004. I'm not sure how to read the VIN numbers on these Emarks, but it does have a Briggs Vanguard V-twin on this, 18 horse. We'll check that in a minute. And the date code on that was 04. This is a Lazer Z CT, has a 44-inch cutting deck. And I picked this up a couple of months ago for, believe it or not, 200 bucks. This was a backup mower for a landscape company. They were having some electrical issues, so that they were having problems getting the deck to turn on one of the times that they went to use it. And they had put it underneath of a carport over at their shop, and it had sat for 2 years. I ended up getting it for super cheap. Honestly, the engine alone is probably worth the $200. And this does run. We were able to get this cranked up. The battery is pretty much toast, but we used a jumper pack to get it up and running, and the hydros so far seem to be working good. I didn't see really any leaking or any issues with the pump. The reservoir for the hydraulics seemed to be full, and the oil looked pretty good on it. Now, I was not able to get the mowing deck to turn on, but we will get that all figured out. I did kind of just check the blades on it, make sure everything's spun, and it looks like the deck is in pretty good shape. I don't see anything crazy going on. The seat, since this was sitting outside, had gotten wet, so the wood that was underneath basically rotted off. I know the sun's probably blinding you guys, so you're not going to be able to see that well right now, but we'll get this in the shop and get a good view of everything. But this only has 313 hours on the clock, so pretty crazy for 20-year-old zero turn commercial with 300 hours on it, and for 200 bucks. I've got at least one flat tire on it I know of. One of the front wheels has a valve stem that was ripped out, so that will definitely not hold air. We've got a bad battery, so I am gonna go get the air compressor. I'm gonna air up the tires the best I can. We're gonna get the jumper pack hooked up. I'm gonna show you guys cranking this up, and we'll get this pulled into the shop so we can see exactly what we've got going on with it and get this machine fixed. Now, I believe the charging system is working just fine on here, because once I had this up and running, I was able to disconnect the jumper pack, and the battery that's on here was still able to keep the anti-backfire solenoid working. So that's what we're gonna try to do. I'm gonna try to get this jumped off, we'll get it running, and then we'll get it pulled into the shop. So like I said, I've already checked the oil on it before. It's in pretty good shape. So choke up, we'll give it a little throttle, and that should be it. Better connection. Alright, let me go get some spray. We'll see if we can get this thing going. The pre-filter on here was pretty much falling off, but we'll take this air filter off to see if we can get it going. Open up the choke. All right, let's see what we can do. idles extremely smooth. We got the parking brake. As you guys can see, if we try to engage the deck, it doesn't do anything. It seemed like it was almost flooded actually, because I turned the choke off after we had put the spray on there, and then it cranked up. So you guys can see, I mean, it idles and runs incredibly smooth. It's just a little hard to start. So all right, and it is next day. We're gonna go ahead today and put some fresh fuel in here, hopefully get this thing starting a little bit easier. There's basically just enough fuel at the bottom of the tank to cover the plastic. I'm hoping putting some fresh fuel in here, it'll start a little easier, but we will see. And also this battery, it was in pretty bad shape. So I have another Husqvarna rider we're just going to take a new battery out of. I just bought the other day. We'll put it in here. We'll get this thing cranked up, see how that's going to go. And then from there we'll double check, see if the charging system's working. And we can try to start diagnosing this electronic PTO and move forward from there. Right, I had a heck of a time getting that battery out. I'll show you guys this is the tie down for it. It's basically all rusted, had some wing nuts on top, and here is the old bolts. You guys can see the corrosion on here. This battery was from 2021, so it's got a few years on it. I might try to see if I can revive that one. We'll see what we can do, but I do want to just get this hot battery put in. This is one I bought just a couple of days ago, 250 cold cranking amps from Tractor Supply. So we'll go ahead and pop that one in. I like these, they got the handles on them now, so they're a lot easier to grab. But I'll go ahead, I'm gonna get those bolts cleaned up on the wire wheel or with a brush, and we'll get that installed, get this thing cranking. Put a little bit of fuel in here and see if we can get this thing to fire up. It does have a gas gauge over here, but it's so faded from the sun that I can't really see it right now. That's something I'll probably try to get cleaned up so we can see that. Alright, that should be enough to get us by. We'll get it up and running, and then I'll get the multimeter out and we'll check. I guess we can check the voltage now and then we'll check it when it's running. Alright, so we've got 12.8 right now. So let's give it a shot today. We'll try it with no choke, and then we'll go to choke, because yesterday it seemed like it was flooded out. Alright, so we'll go partial throttle, full choke. That fired right up. Alright, well, the engine sounds great, but I don't know if you guys can see or not, but we are not charging at all. It was at like 12.46, and taking the RPMs up and down, it wasn't doing anything. We could have a bad voltage regulator on here, which is right down. I'm trying to see if I can show you guys on the tripod, but we've got our, let me get y'all set up where you can see. You can see our voltage regulator is right up there on the side of the engine. 2 bolts. That one is a 3-wire. I'll have to see if I have another one of those too where we can just test it out and see. I don't think that this ground wire has anything to do with the voltage regulator. I'll have to get in there and look at these wires a little bit more. Alright, well I did a little digging and I found another voltage regulator. I'm not sure if this one is good or bad, but we are going to give it a shot. It did come off from a spare V-twin that I've got here, another Briggs. It is a little difficult to see in here. Just have that that yellow plug, and then you just have the red wire. So, and then there's just 2 3/8 bolts that hold it. It's just a tight area on this machine. They're all a little bit different where they're going to be. But I'm going to go ahead and get this old one pulled off. I'll just get this plugged in and we're going to crank it and see. We could go ahead and start testing everything with the multimeter, but since I had another one on hand, we're just going to see if we can just test it out. Alright, we got the old one swapped out and the new one was just plug and play. Got that in position. The other one that I took it off from was 3/8, but this one was a 10 millimeter, the 2 bolts, and then it was just the 2 plugs. But since this is electric PTO on here, we should have a stronger alternator basically on here, but we should be around anywhere from 13 to 14 volts. You don't want to go over 14, but somewhere in that range. So if we're within that mark, that will be great, and if not, then we've got other problems. So we'll see if we can crank this up now. We're at 12.54. Alright, well, that was fixed for that issue. So right off the bat we were not charging, which could have been the problem with the PTO on here, because if you get below a certain voltage you might be able to crank this up, but as soon as you try to turn on the mowing deck, it'll either turn on and then kick immediately off, or sometimes it won't even turn on. I've had that issue in the past. So I can't turn the mowing deck on inside the shop because it will suck that carpet up. So let me get you guys set up out here and we'll see if we can get this PTO clutch to work. Alright, I did drop this down a little bit. I've got the pin set, I think at like 3 inches, but this does have almost new blades on it. They will need a little bit of an edge put on it, but I can spin the deck freely. I had looked over the deck when purchasing it. It does look like they may have had, let's see if I can get you guys in there, a new idler pulley put on over here, and everything seems to move freely. This is our flat tire that has no valve stem in it, so it probably will sit a little bit lower on this side. But let me get you guys set up over here. We'll crank it up. We'll turn this mowing deck on and see if it will mow. Seems like it's good. The deck does seem a little bit loud, but I believe this one does have the greasable spindles,
So we'll double check that, but let me get the multimeter and check the voltage again. Yeah, we're at 13.3, so it seems like everything is good there. Overall, we are running, driving, and cutting. This tire did hold air overnight, so we'll see. Maybe we can ATF that tire. All right, well, I just had to ponder for a minute how I wanted to go about things. I guess what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this over to the pressure washer. We'll get this all cleaned up. That way we got a better look at everything. After I get this washed and I'm letting it dry, I'm gonna run up to the store, get an oil filter and get a fuel filter for it. That way we can get those changed out and get some fresh oil in here to the right level. I'll probably put you guys on the time lapse while I do the pressure wash on here, and then we can move on with the rest. All right, well, did clean up some of the stuff still didn't come off. I'll probably end up having to do a secondary scrub, but this looks much better than it did before, especially that engine bay area here and where the hydraulics are. But I am gonna hit this with the blower real quick, and then I'm just gonna pull this back into the shop to let it dry while I go up to the store. One of the things I did notice when I was brushing this tire over here is the valve stem. The valve stem is bad, so it must be ripped right under there. So as soon as you touch it, it's letting air out. So we may end up needing to get a couple of valve stems, maybe tube a tire, but I'm still blown away how incredibly well this runs. And we've got charging system working now. We aren't going to have a whole lot of money into this to make this a really nice mower. So let me go get these supplies. I'm gonna get this thing dried off and we will jump on what's next. All right, well, I just got back from the store. This thing should be dried off pretty good. Went ahead and got a drain pan and a 10mm. I had to see. We've got this bronze or brass nut over here, and then this one drains underneath. Got the oil filter, got a new fuel filter, and we can go ahead and put that on while we're letting this drain. And I did actually have some valve stems on hand, so I know we've got at least this one and one of the front wheels, and we'll try to ATF the other ones. But let me get this running for about 5 minutes and I'll show you guys when we're getting this oil drained out. All right, had that running for about 4 or 5 minutes. I was checking too, and the hour meter is working on here. I was just kind of curious to see if it was. So those should be our true hours on this machine. And we can go ahead and start draining here. Got to do it right next to this exhaust pipe, which I just touched. Couldn't really find anything else to fit in here besides a 10mm open end, because one of the hydraulic hoses is like right up against it. But just got to get this cracked open. And I got to open up the fill port on here as well so that it can flow a little easier. It really didn't look bad, it was just over full. I'll go ahead and get this knocked out. I've got 17% left on my GoPro battery and I need to charge, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish draining this. Just got 2 clamps to take that fuel filter loose, get this new one in, and then on this side over here is where the oil filter is, so we'll get a brand new Briggs one on there. And I will check in with you guys once I get this refilled. All right, and after about 15 minutes I got that drained. I got the plug tightened back up. I did go ahead and swap out the fuel filter on here, and here is our old
oil filter. We're gonna go ahead and fill this up. I don't know how much this takes. I'm gonna go ahead and just put a quart in, check it, and then just keep adding from there and keep checking. And then after we get that topped off, I'll run it for a couple of minutes, let it fill up the oil filter, and then double check, and we should be good. Just finished getting that oil topped off, took about a quart and a half, and started to get the lugs loose with a breaker bar on here. It was a 3/4 inch socket. I just got the jack in position, so I'll set you guys up real quick, and I'm just gonna finish getting these nuts off with the impact and get this in the air. I think it was that one. Now I've got the Harbor Freight like mini tire changer. I've actually never used it. So we are gonna try and see if we can break the bead loose on this and then get the new valve stem up underneath and pull it through. I've got this out here, like I said, I've never even used this before. I had big plans of changing out lots of tires, but I also hate doing tires on these. So I've got my valve core removal. We'll go ahead and let all the air out. In theory, all we should have to do is break the bead and then get underneath of the rim to put the new valve stem in. So we'll see how it goes. We're gonna have to take this one off anyway. So that's all garbage. But we shall see. No, that was easy enough. All right. Let me get something to finish cutting that off, and then I'll go ahead and push the other one through. Go ahead and feed this one right on through. Clean up underneath this spot. You can already see there's a ton of fix-a-flat in here, so this has already been tried to have been repaired before. So now I can take the valve core tool. We can spin this down on here, and then I'm probably just going to grab some WD-40 and pull this through. Alright, we'll see if I can get my air hose just to hit this and seat the bead again. Alright, just ended up rolling it on its side because I couldn't find my other chuck. But once I got it rolled on its side, it kind of helped seat the rim up against. And I just put 10 psi in here. So we'll see if this holds for now. But that worked out pretty well. That took like maybe 5 minutes. And that was getting the tools out as well. So I'm gonna go put this one back on, and I'm gonna get that front wheel off. All right, and I got the front wheel off. It was a 3/4 on there as well, same as the rear lug nuts, and just the bolt. And then there was 2 dust caps that come off. Unfortunately, the center is actually too small for this threaded portion on here, so I'm gonna try to just break the bead by hand on here, and then I'm just gonna fish the plug through, or the valve on here as well. All right, well, it has been 2 days since I filmed last. We are currently waiting for the hurricane to get here. It should be here in another day. We have been getting a bunch of rain, but I got all 4 tires, seem to be holding air. They still seem to be holding just as much as they did 2 days ago, so I think we've got the tire issue solved. What I want to do is go ahead and get this up in the air. I did not see any grease fittings on the top side of these spindles, so I'd like to look on the bottom side and see if we have any grease fittings under there. And if we do, we'll get that greased, check the condition of these blades, and then I've got to look to see where all the other grease points are on here.
and then we can keep on moving forward. All right, well, I got this up in the air, and I did go ahead and take off the foot pan on here. This one doesn't even bolt down. It actually just slips underneath of these points right here. And underneath of it has the diagram of the maintenance on here and intervals. It also shows the grease points. So we do have a grease point right here on this fitting to raise and lower the deck, as well as right here. And these points are the same on both sides. It also has a point down in here for the tensioner, which is right here on the diagram, and then we also have one on the back tensioner underneath of the engine. Now we do have blades right in the way, but we have the grease cert right there on the side of the spindle on here. And I was looking at the blades. They're in almost new condition. I will go ahead and put an edge on there. It probably won't be right now, but before I go to sell this, I will. I also looked at the baffling and everything underneath of here, and it looks to be in really good shape. So I think this deck is basically good to go, other than I've still got to go find out where I put that cover, and I'm going to go ahead and get everything greased, but I'll check in when I get it greased. One of the other things I want to do too is that these arms are extremely stiff, so I'm going to oil the pivot for the arms on here. I'll check in when we're done with that. We'll probably go ahead on getting the seat reattached. Alright, and I got all of the grease points that I could find done on here, and everything looks good. I also blew with compressed air underneath all of the pulleys and got that whole area clean, so we are looking good. I did oil up the bars like I was talking about, and they are nice and smooth now. I'll take y'all around to the other side here. Got to go around this big roll hoop, and then the deck lift itself, it's a pretty heavy deck, but it's a lot smoother now. It has the hand control and the foot, so we are looking pretty good. We'll go ahead and get this drop back down, and then I'm gonna go ahead and scrub the seat with some degreaser and get the seat all cleaned up, and then we'll take a look at this pan here. I think we're gonna have to cut some of the old bolts off before we glue this down. All right, well, I did try to clean up the seat a bit with some degreaser. The top came out better than the bottom, but I may try some kind of bleach solution. So what we're left with is the metal seat pan, and it still has the old bolt and nut, and the nut was one of those wood ones that digs into the wood and cinches it up. The wood was basically deteriorated, so that's all been taken off. What I'm gonna do is take off all the hardware on the back side. We're gonna use some of this Loctite heavy duty and basically just glue the seat down and glue the pan back down, and I think we should be pretty good. It's not going to be as good as it was from factory, but it'll hold the seat in place. I just want to make sure the edges are on there really good too. So I'll go ahead and get that. We'll get this in position. And I think once it's kind of in its spot, normally I clamp these down, but it seems like this one's gonna sit pretty good. If it's not in a good enough spot, then I will go ahead and clamp that down too. And here's a quick look. I did have to put the clamps on. I just want to make sure that those edges are gonna sit down nice. Top, it's not going to hurt the seat with the 2x4, and when I get done, if there's some creases, you can use a heat gun just to soften the material. One other thing I wanted to try, because I'm going to clean up the shop and probably call it a day out here today, we can try to do a cold start on the machine now that we've let it set for a couple of days. I just want to see if we're going to have to do a carb clean. This is totally cold. Show you guys. Grab the pipe down here, right at the headers. We will give it a little choke today, and Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys sticking tuned. If you guys like this kind of content, maybe think about hitting that thumbs up and the subscribe if you are not subscribed already. I'm gonna wrap it up. Like I said, I've got a bunch of stuff to clean up in here, and we'll let this seat here. And then after this, we're probably gonna be working on mainly cosmetic stuff. I'll get that panel put back on, and then we can do a full test of this machine. We'll cut some of the yard and just make sure everything is 100% and see if we have anything else that needs to be done on it. I just can't believe this machine for 200 bucks. I don't know what it's gonna be valued at yet, but I'm gonna say probably closer to about $1,800. So we shall see. All right, and here we are, probably about a week later from when I filmed last. I have been super pressed on time lately, but I did work on this a little bit here and there and got a lot of the cosmetic and just little things I wanted done on it. But I did go ahead and take off all the wheels and repainted those in a gloss white. I did these spindle covers, which the red doesn't quite match, but still in my opinion looks pretty good. We did new grip tape on the floor and on the upper foot pad there. What else? I did find, because I thought that I had the original Vanguard logo or the sticker for the top. I did have that, and I put it back on, re-glued that, and also here on the back and around the muffler area I just did a little bit of some touch-up paint, but not a whole lot, just kind of wiped everything down. But this thing looks super nice. I also did, kind of hard to see with the glare, but I did wet sand and polish the gas gauge, and now that is at least able to be read. And I'll give you guys a quick startup. I am ready to test out the hydros on here more than anything, because I haven't had a chance to do that yet. So you guys can hear it cranks right up. I'll get you guys set up and we're gonna do some mowing. Alright, well I ran this around for about 5 more minutes and got the hydros nice and warmed up, and there is no issues with it. I think this is going to be an excellent machine. It is cutting incredibly smooth, and the deck seems nice and level on it. So I think this is probably going to be at least a $2,000 machine, and we've got probably $100 in parts in it. We were at $1,250, so after the parts we should have been at around $950, and I think that we should easily be able to sell this for anywhere from like $1,800 to $2,500. Let me know what you guys think in your area, especially with the hours on this machine and how well it runs. But I really appreciate you guys staying tuned. This is my first video. I actually have another video out, but I was filming this one beforehand, and it's the first one I filmed in quite a while, so it's a little rusty. I appreciate you guys checking out the channel, and we're going to have a ton of content coming up, and I greatly appreciate the support. So on that note, let freedom ring, let those small engines sing. I'll see you all next time.